Okay, we're on Daf Tzadik Daled. We are 5 lines in from the top of the Amud. We're continuing the halachas when we get to Korban Pesach. In the Mishnah it said, what's considered to be derech rechoika? Person was too distant to bring the carbon, and then he brings the Pesach Sheni. So Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Braisa, Haya oimid chutz leMeidiyim. If you're outside the city of Meidiyim, which was mentioned in the Mishnah as well, v'yachal likanes besusim ubepradim. So even though in the Mishnah it said that Meidiyim is 15 miles, and therefore it's far enough that you're not going to make it on time, but you can travel quickly. You can go on a horse or on a mule, and you'll make it on time. Yachal yechayev. So I would think that since you could go on a horse and you didn't, so I would think that you would be chayev kares for not going. Talmud loymar ubaderech loy hoya. That the chayev kares is only if you were not on the way. And over here, once you're past Meidiyim, which going by foot, you cannot go make it on time. So even though if you have a horse or a mule, so you're not chayev kares. You're not necessarily expected to be able to have a horse or a mule to be able to make it on time. Now, what's with the opposite scenario? So this is the conclusion. So this person, he's on the way. He's there, and he's far enough that he can't make it by foot. How about a person that's closer than Meidiyim? So he's not considered to be baderech. It's close enough that by foot he can make it. But he can't make it on time. Why? Because he's on a camel and he's with the groups of people, with karainas, the wagons that are traveling, and he's traveling with his own family. They're in a wagon, and there's a traffic jam, and he can't make it on time. So in such a case, I would think I would think that he's not obligated. He won't be chayev kares if he doesn't go on time. Talmud loyma. So the pasuk says ubaderech loy hoya, that if he was not far away on a way, and over here once you're within Meidiyim, within 15 miles or 15 mil, it really is. So then you're able to go by foot. You're obligated to go by foot. He was not 15 mil away from Yerushalayim, you're obligated to go. So Rashi explains what this means is, you're there with your family, and therefore you're in a traffic jam and you can't make it on time. What you're obligated to do is get out of your car or get off your camel and walk by foot to make it on time. If you physically are close enough that you could make it on time, even though you're with your family, you're going to have to get off and go and make it on time. Mashenkin, if you're far away, so the Torah says, baderech, if you are far away, you're not obligated to find a horse to ride in, to go quickly, to be there on time. Now the Gemara goes back to what we learned yesterday, B'negea, to the track of the sun, how the sun travels by Shamayim. Let's see. Zakt the Gemara, Amarov, Shita Alpha Parsi Hava Alma. 6,000 parsa is this distance of the world, and it's what the Gemara is referring to is the sun that rises on the east and sets on the west. So 6,000 parsa is the length of the track that the sun travels from east to west. Then the sumcha, the rakia, the thickness of the rakia itself, the sun, when it sets, according to what the Gemara says here, and we'll see in Numbers Beis more about this, there's one opinion that when the sun sets, it goes through the rakia, the firmament, or the atmosphere, or whatever you want to call it, and when it goes through that rakia, there's a thickness of rakia, and that's what causes the sun to disappear. How thick is this rakia? Alpha parsi. It's 1,000 parsa thick, and when the sun goes through that rakia, the shine of the sun disappears from the earth. So the Gemara explains from where Rava knew this.
The world turns on the sun.
Huh?
The world.
No, the sun revolves. The sun is the one that goes around, and the world stays in one place. That's the opinion of Torah. Yeah, but what it says here in the Gemara, though, that what happens is when the sun sets, that the sun goes through the rakia. So we'll see in Amud Beis, the Gemara says that there are two opinions of what happens to the sun when it sets. First, let me be maked in one thing, that the things that we're going to learn here in the Gemara, the Maharal says that this Gemara, like many other Gemaras like this, is sometimes difficult to work it out with simple science of how things are. And he explains this entire sugya, all api ruchnius. That the Gemara does not mean begashmius, it's all meant to be understood beruchnius. That's one point to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind over here is that when the Gemara here says that what happens to the sun is when the sun disappears from the horizon, it goes through the rakia, the thickness of the rakia, and therefore the sun disappears. So what does the Gemara really mean to say? we know the sun disappears because it travels and it goes below the earth. It goes under the earth, the other side. That's what happens to the sun. It doesn't go through any rakia. So the Gemara brings in Amud Beis that there was a machlokes between the Chachmei Yisrael and the Chachmei Umas Ha'olam. The Chachmei Umas Ha'olam said that the sun goes, like we know, it travels below, under the earth, and it comes back up. It goes around. Mivaga makes a rotation around the world. But the Chachmei Yisrael said that when the sun sets, it leaves the atmosphere and it goes outside of a rakia, it goes outside this thickness of a firmament, and that's why the sun disappears. It does not go below, under the earth. It goes actually up, and then it travels back above us to come back to the east, to rise again on the east. But the sun is really traveling back above us. So why don't we see the shine of the sun during the night when it's traveling back above us? The answer is because there's this thickness of the rakia which doesn't allow the shine of the sun to penetrate, to come down, to reach the earth. And that's what's happening. So here when the Gemara is saying that there's 1,000 parsas, the thickness of the rakia, it's referring to the fact that the sun leaves our atmosphere and it enters into a different place, and therefore the shine of the sun doesn't reach us.
But it's able to shine on the moon.
At that time, yeah. So because the moon is, I guess, outside of that, is above that rakia. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now the Gemara explains where Rava got this from, and eventually, we're learning the Gemara here. We'll see that the Gemara is going to completely refute what Rava said. But first, the source of what Rava said. Chade, one thing that Rava said was Gemara. He had it as a tradition, and v'chade svara. And then another thing that Rava said, he concluded on his own logically. So Rava held of what Rabbi Bar Bachana Rabbi Yechanan said. That was his tradition. We had this in the Gemara yesterday. What did Rabbi Yechanan say? How much is the distance that an average person could walk on an average day? Yud parsois, 10 parsa. How much is 10 parsa? 40 mil. And then the breakdown is as follows. From Aleisa Shacha, the break of dawn, until Netzach Chachma Heimilin. That's the distance, the length of time is the distance to walk 5 mil. Same Mishkiya Sachama Atzesak Echavrim, from the time when the sun sets to when the stars appear, is also Chamisha Milin. It's the distance to walk 5 mil. So now, what's the rest of the day that a person walks? 30 mil, right? So if you compare the amount of time that a person walks during the day to the amount of time that a person walks from Alois until Netz, that's only a sixth of what he can walk during the day. If you can walk during the day 30 mil, and then from Alois until Netz you could only walk 5 mil, so that's a sixth of what you walk during the day. So what do you see from this? There's the time that the sun travels during the day from Netz. When the sun travels, the parsois, the track that the sun travels from east to west, that's the amount of time that a person can walk 30 parsa. And then there's the time of the sun from Shkia until Tzeisak Achavim. That's the time that the sun is exiting and going through the thickness of the rakia. So Nimtza Ovya Shel Rakia Echad Mishisha B'Yayim. So the thickness of the rakia, which is that length of time that the sun travels, whether from Shkia to Tzeis or from Alois until Netz, is this a sixth of the length of the track of the sun of the day. So we see you had a tradition benigea to how long the day is, that what Rabbi Yechanan said, Yud Parsois, the Mahalach of an Adam Beinini, but then he concluded based on what Rabbi Yechanan said benigea to the thickness of the rakia. Now the Gemara brings a question on this. The Gemara brings 3 or 4 questions to refute what Rava said. Meisveis, the question was asked. In a Braise it says, Rabbi Yehuda said, Oiviyoi, Shel Rakia, Echad Me'asara B'Yayim. The thickness of the Rakia is 1/10 of the day. Not a 6th, but 1/10. Teida, I'll prove this to you. Kama Malachadam Beinani B'Yayim. What's the amount that an average person walks on an average day? Eser Parsois, 10 parsa. Again, 40 mil. But he breaks it down differently. How long is the distance that a person walks from Alois HaShachar to Netz? Arbas milin. Only 4 million, not 5, but 4. The same from Shkia until Tzeis, Arba million, 4 million. So Nimtzat comes out, the thickness of the Rakia is 1/10 of the day. If you actually include, he's doing the percentage different than the way we did it before. If you look at the percentage of the entire day, in other words, the entire 40 mil, starting from Alois until Tseis, which is the distance of 40 mil that a person could walk. So the number 4 mil that a person walks from Alais till Netz, or from Shkia until Tseis, 4 is a tenth from the full amount of 40 mil that a person can walk from Shkia, from Alais, that is, until Tseis. So the point is that he's saying the number differently than what Rava said. Rava said that the thickness of the Rekiah is 1,000 parsa, and he's saying that it's less. He's saying that it's going to come out, I don't know the exact number, but it comes out less than that, because it's only 4 mil that you walk in that time. So to Yufte the Rava, this refutes what Rava said. And also to Yufte the Ula, this also refutes what Ula said. The Gemara brought before that Ula said, benigeh to the distance of the city Maidiim. The distance of the city Maidiim, he said, is 15 mil away from Yerushalayim. How did Ula come to that conclusion? Because Ula said that you have to divide the day itself into 30. The day has 30. The first half of the day is you can walk 15 mil, and the second half of the day you can walk 15 mil. And therefore he said the time that you can bring the Korban Pesach is only from Chatzais until Shkia, which is the distance of 15 mil, and therefore Medium is 15 mil. But according to what it says in this Brais, in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, the time of the day that a person can walk is 32 mil. Not 30, but 32. So then if you divide that into half, it should be, Medium should be 16 mil away from Yerushalayim, not 15. So therefore it refutes what Ula said. Now the Gemara is Tiyufta, so this refutes what they both said, both what Rava said and what Ula said. Leime to have it to Yufta the Rabbi Yechanan. Now what Rava said was based on what Rabbi Yechanan said. Should we say that this also refutes what Rabbi Yechanan said? So Amalach, now Rabbi Yechanan will tell you, no, it doesn't refute what I said. Why? Ana be'yamamahu the Amri. I only said the full amount of the day, which is from the beginning of the day till the end of the day. He said 8 yud parsais, which is 40 mil. That's all Rabbi Yechanan said. Now, when they broke it down into exactly the amount of time you could walk from the Lois until Netz, and then from Shkia until Tzeis, Rabbi Yechanan didn't say that. V'Rabbanan hu de kato, the Rabbana that came and interpreted what he said, and they said that a person can walk from a Lois until Netz 5 mil, that was their breakdown. Rabbi Yechanan didn't say that. And they made a mistake, the kachashvan, the kodma v'chashaycha, because they were measuring the amount of time that people walk from Alois to Netz. They were starting from too early, because they were counting from the time that people that wake up very early and go out to work or go out to their way even before Alois. So they were counting from too early, and therefore they included an extra mil in that distance from Alois until Netz. They made a mistake. It really should be 4 mil, and they counted it as 5 mil. And also Chashaycha, they were counting the distance people are walking from Shkia until Tzeis, but there are people that come home later than Tzeis. And they were counting an extra mil for those people that come late. That was their mistake, but Rabbi Yechanan himself never said this. Now the Gemara says, Leime to heavy to Yufte de Rab Chanina. Should what we said here refute what Rab Chanina said? So we learned yesterday that Rab Chanina said, from where do we know that the distance from Alois until Netz is 5 mil? So Rab Chanina said, because we see it by the story of Lot, by Sedaim. It says over there that from Alois until Netz, the Malachim took Lot from where he was in Sedaim, and they brought him to the city of Tzoyar. That took from Alois till Netz. And the Gemara says that when the Rab Chanina said, I saw that place, and it's the distance of 5 mil. So Rab Chanina also said that the distance is 5 mil, not like Rabbi Yehuda that said that you can travel from Alois till Netz, only 4 mil. Says the Gemara, it's not a question of Rab Chanina, Vayo itzu shani. The fact that Malachim rushed him and took him very quickly, so you can travel an extra mil, a longer distance that you can usually travel, an average person travels, which is only 4 mil. So it only refutes Rava and Ula's opinion, but not what Rabbi Yechanan and Rab Chanina said. Toshama, I'll bring you another braisa to disprove what Rava said regarding the length of the track of the sun when it goes from east to west. So it says in the braisa as follows: Mitzrayim hoya arba meis parsa al arba meis parsa. It's 400 by 400 parsa. That's the square size of Yerushalayim, of Mitzrayim, that is, sorry. Mitzrayim echad mishishim bekush. Mitzrayim is only a 60th of the size of Kush. And the Kush echad mishishim ba'olam. And Kush is only a 60th of the size of the entire world. And va'olam, the entire world, is echad mishishim began. It's a 60th of the Gan, of the garden of Gan Eden. And the Gan is echad mishishim be'eden. And Gan is only a 60th of Eden. And the Eden is echad mishishim begehenim. And the Eden is only a 60th of the size of Gehenim. So what do you see from here? Nimtza kol ha'olam kuloi, the entire world, kikisi kedeira legehenim. The entire world, in relation to the size of Gehenim, is so tiny it's like a cover of a pot. In other words, it's very small in relation to the large size of what Gehenim is. So therefore, what do we see from this Braisa? The size of the world is way bigger than what Rava described. Rava was saying that the track of the sun that travels from east to west is only 6 parsa. If you make the cheshbon over here, it's going to come out way more than 6 parsa. I saw different pirushim exactly what the size would be. The Tzlach says that it would be about 24,000 parsa instead of 6,000 parsa. Others say that it's more like 45,000 parsa. Whatever it is, but the numbers here that you see is way larger, way longer than 6,000 parsa. The track of the sun that it travels is so. But this refutes again what Rava said to Yufta. A third raya against Rava. Toshama, we learned the Tana de Eliyahu taught. Some say this actually refers to Eliyahu Hanavi. Some say it refers to Tana. So Eliyahu taught Rab Nosson Oimer. Rab Nosson said that Kol Hayishuv Kuloi, the entire civilization that there is in the world, is Tachas Koichev Echad, is the size as large as one star. As the size of the diameter of one star, that's how large the size of the civilization in this world is. Tachas koichev echad yoshev, and we're like sitting under the size of one star. Teida, and it says, I'll prove this to you. Sharei adam noiseneina bekoichev echad. You can look up at night and take a look at one star, and hailech lemizrach, and if you'll travel to the east, oimit kenegda, you'll see that star will be right above your head. La'ar baruchas ha'olam, whichever side of the world you'll travel to, oimit kenegda, you'll see that star is right above your head. So what does that mean? Michlal, that proves the Chala Yishuv Kuloi Tachas Koichev Echad Yishuv, that the entire civilization is the size of like under the diameter of one star. Wherever you go, you're under that star. So what do you see from this? You see that the size of the world below is just as large as one star. Now Rashi says, we're going to assume that the size of civilization is at least 1,000 parsa. We can see that it's the amount of parsais, which is every parsa is 4 mil. So we can see that it's for sure at least that size. So now, how many stars are there in the sky? Only 6 stars. According to what Rava says, it would come out that if we are as large as one star, and the track of the sun traveling the entire length of the sky from east to west is only 6,000 parsais, so that would mean that there's just six stars in the length of the sky. But we see that there's millions of stars there. And the sun travels the entire length from east to west. So it must be that the track of the sun traveling from east to west is much longer and much larger than 6,000 mil.
The sun is not moving. Where will we be?
Okay, so the question. Relativity. Okay, Akopanim. So this is the third raya against Rava. To Yufte, that refutes what Rava said. Toshama, a fourth raya against Rava. So it says in a Braisa, when you look up at the constellations that there are, the mazalis that there are in the sky, so there are 12 mazalis, and here it tells you regarding 2 of them. Egla, or Agala, Betzofin. This refers to the constellation which is in the shape of a calf, or it's the mazal of Shir. So where is that found? In the north of the sky. The Akrav, and the mazal of Akrav, which is like the shape of a scorpion, Bedorim. That's found in the south. And the Chala Yishuv Kuloi, the entire civilization in the world, Eini Yishuv Ela Bein Agala Akrav. It's here in this world between the north and the south, between these 2 mazalis. And the Chala Yishuv Kuloi, the entire civilization of the world, Eino Hoive Ela Shah Achas Bayom. So the sun travels above civilization, above the world, only 1 hour of the day. In other words, the sun is traveling from east to west in the entire sky. And the earth is in the middle, right? But the sun is only above the world for only 1 hour in the day. The rest of the time, the sun is traveling from east to west. It's over the space, or actually says it's over Yamim and Naharis and Midbaris. If I mean the way Rashi and Tosfos write this in, it almost seems like they're saying that the world is flat, and you have civilization, and then you have water and desert that continues flat endlessly until one end of the sky and the other end of the sky. That's what it looks like from the simple reading of the Rashi. But I mean, l'chayra, the pshat over here is that you have the world, which is a ball in the middle, and then you have the entire space on all sides, and the sun travels from one end to the other end, and there's only 1 hour of the day that the sun is actually right above the earth itself. Right? The sun only enters above civilization, above the world, for 1 hour of the day. And how can we notice this? Teida, I'll prove this to you. In the 5th hour from the morning, you look up, the sun is still to the east of you, so it's not yet above the world. B'sheva, you look up at the 7th hour of the day, the sun is already on the west of you. But it's only chatzi sheish v'chatzi sheva. It's from 5.5 hours into the day when you have half of the 6th hour or half of the 7th hour. Which, in other words, at that time of chatzais, the half hour from the half hour before chatzais till a half hour after chatzais, chamay medes b'reish kol adam. Then you could see that the sun is right on top of every person. You look up and the sun is right above you. So what do you see over here? That the track of the sun traveling above us goes much more than who we are over here. In other words, it's only 1 hour from the 12 hours of the day that the sun is above us. So again, let's assume that the length of the earth is 1,000 parsais. It's definitely more than that, but even if we're going to assume it's only 1,000 parsais. So if the length of the track of the sun is 11 times more than what our world is, the size of our world, so then that would already be 12,000 parsais. Much longer than what Rav said, that it's only a length of 6,000 parsais. And according to what we learned before, it's definitely even much more than that. So therefore, to Yufta, it refutes what Rav said, that the sun only travels a length of distance of 6,000 parsais. Toshama, a 5th raya against Rav. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, Ma tshuva heshivase baska eloise Rasha. What was the answer that the Eibishter gave to this Rasha, which was Nebuchadnezzar, b'shah she'amar, when he said, Ela al bomese of, I will climb up on the clouds, Adam ele elyon, I'll compare to the Eibishter, and I'll climb up to the Eibishter. Yotza baska v'amra. A baska came out and said, Loyle Rasha, and told him this Rasha. Rasha ben Rasha. Ben benoi shal Nimrod Rasha. The descendant of Nimrod. It doesn't actually mean that he was a grandson of Nimrod, but it means that he was a descendant of Nimrod. Shehimrid es kala olam kulay alai b'malchusay. That he brought the entire world to rebel against the Eibishter with the Eibishter's kingdom. Kama, so I told him, you're thinking of climbing up to reaching the Eibishter. So let's see if it's possible. Kama shnois of shaladam. How long is the life of a person in this world? Shivim shana, 70 years. And vim begvurais shmainim shana, or 80 years. Shanema yemesh nesenevem shivim shana vim begvurais shmainim shana. So now, you want to climb up to Shemayim. Do you have the ability? Do you have the time in your life to do this? Mina aretz ad l'rekiya, to climb up from aretz until the first rekiya, mahala chamish meis shana. That's a distance of 500 years. V'oivei shal rekiya, the thickness of each rekiya is mahala chei meis shana, is another length of 500 years. And then uvein rekiya l'rekiya, mahala chei meis shana, between one rekiya and the other is 500 years. Uvein v'chein ben kol rekiya v'rekiya. And it's the same distance of 500 years between each rekiya. As we know, there are 7 rekiyim, and there's that distance of 500 years. And therefore the Eibishter tells him, Ach el sha'il toired el yakasei bair. You'll go down to the depths, of a pit, and you won't be able to climb up to the Eibishter. So what do you see from here? The height of how high you have to travel to exit out of the atmosphere of the world and to go up to the Eibishter. So Rashi here brings, the Gemara says in Chagigah, that the same distance that there is in the height of the world, the same distance is also in the breadth, in the width, traveling from east to west. So therefore, whatever it said here regarding the distance of traveling upward, you have to apply to the distance that the sun travels when it goes from east to west. We see from here again that the distance that the sun travels is way more than the 6,000 parsa that Rava had said. So to Yufta, this refutes what Rava said. If you look at the different cheshbainis of what the Gemara said over here from these different braises, they all refuted the distance of Rava, which was lefiyerach, a pretty small distance. And the Gemara proved that it's much more than what Rava said, but if you compare them, they're not necessarily all the same. It comes out different, they're not all necessarily the same. And there's also a machlokes, when the Gemara here talks about the track that the sun travels, how far that distance is the Gemara talking about the full rotation of the sun, the distance that it travels coming from one point and then coming back to where it was before? Or is it talking only about a half circle of what the sun makes? So that's also a machlokes. So maybe that's the difference between these different measurements that it mentions here in the Gemara. Okay, Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Braisa. Chachmei Yisrael Leimrim. So the Gemara here will bring two arguments between the Chachmei Yisrael and the Chachmei Umas Ha'olam regarding what's going on in the Mazalais, in the movement of the Mazalais in the Shemayim. So the Chachmei Yisrael say, Galgal Kavua, that all the Mazalis, so we know that there are 12 Mazalis that are B'Shamayim, those are the 12 Mazalis, the shapes of the stars that are all in this one wheel. They're sort of on a line and a wheel that goes around the world. So the Chachmei Yisrael say that Galgal Kavua, this wheel that contains these Mazalis in them, is Kavua. It's in one position, it doesn't move. Umazalois Chayzrin. The mazalois that are in this wheel, so they're moving. And what happens is, according to the opinion of Chachmei Yisrael, the sun also travels on the track of these mazalois, and each one of these mazalois moves forward with the sun to push sort of the sun in this wheel to go forward. So each one of the mazales moves to bring the sun to the next position, and then that mazal goes back to its position. So when it says chayzrin over here, the meaning of chayzrin is that the sun that travels along the track of these mazales, the sun does not have its own track. The mazales push along the sun, and then it goes back to its position. That was the opinion of Chachmei Yisrael. Chachmei Umas Ha'olam Baimrim. However, the Chachmei Umas Ha'olam said that Galgal Chayzer, this wheel that all the mazalis are on, the entire wheel is constantly moving. Umazalis Kvuin. It's the mazalis, they are in one position on this wheel, and the mazalis are moving. And then the sun goes on that track as well, and the sun is constantly moving together with them. So the mazalis are not always in the same place. The mazalis are rotating. It's going around and around. That was the argument between the Chachmei Yisrael and Chachmei Umas Ha'olam. So my Rebbe said to them, Tshuva l'divrei. I have an answer to their opinion, why they're wrong. We look up in the sky and we never see a change in the position of these constellations, of these mazalis. We always see that the mazal of Shor, the shape of a calf, is on the north, and the akrav is on the south. We never see the opposite, that it should change positions. According to what Chachmei Ha'olam say, that the wheel of the mazalis is constantly moving and it's changing, so why don't we see that change in their position? Says the Gemara, but not necessarily is this haraya. Maskav lo Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Rav Acha bar Yaakov said, but vidilma, maybe there are really two wheels. Maybe there are two different tracks. There's a wheel of the mazalos, and then there's the wheel of the sun that's moving. So maybe there's two different wheels. And vidilme kubutzina derechaya. Maybe it's like the blade of a mill. Inami kitzinoira de dasha, or like the pivot of a door. The Gemara is saying is just like when you have a mill, so you have the two stones of a mill. So when you have one of them that moves, you have the bottom stone that's moving, so then the top one stays in its position, and that's how it grinds. Or it's the other way around. The top one moves, and the bottom one stays in its position. So you have two different mills that are, one is in position, and one is moving. And the same thing with a door. You have the hinges, or the door frame, which remains in its position, and the door swings. So what he's bringing over here is he's just giving you two examples that maybe we misunderstood what the Chachmei Umas Ha'olam was saying. When they said that there's a galgal that's moving, it didn't mean to say that the galgal with the mazalis are moving. The galgal with the mazalis are in one position. There's another galgal where the sun is in, and that the galgal with the sun is moving. So there are two galgalim. There are two different wheels there, but Shamayim, two different tracks of the sun. You have a picture over there, yeah. You have two different tracks of the sun and the mazalais. Even the Chachmei Ha'olam agree that the track of the mazalais remain in position. The track of the sun is what's moving, and therefore, even according to them, we don't see a change in the position of where the mazalais are, but Shamayim. Okay, that was one argument between the Chachmei Yisrael and the Chachmei Umas Ha'olam. Another argument, Chachmei Yisrael Leimrim, the Chachmei Yisrael said, by Yom, what happens by day? Chama ma'aleches lemata min harakia. So the sun is traveling above us, but below the rakia, below that atmosphere of rakia, and therefore it allows the shine of the sun to reach us. But a balayla, where does the sun go to at night? So the Chachmi Yisrael said, L'mayla min rakia. It leaves our atmosphere, it exits out of like a window, like we say in davening, chaloine rakia. It exits out of a window, goes out of the rakia, and then it goes above. It actually is traveling back to go back to the east, above us, but because it's going above the rakia, so therefore the shine of the sun doesn't reach us. However, the Chachamim of the Umasailam say, by daytime, the sun is traveling below the rakia above us, but a balayla lematum in akarka. What happens to the sun is, it goes below the world, comes and makes a full rotation, it comes down below the world and it comes back up. That's what the Chachmi Umasailam said. So Amar Rebbe, regarding this machlokes between the Chachmi Yisrael and the Chachmi Umasailam, so Rebbe said, V'nir and divreyem midivreinu. And it appears that they are right and we are wrong. Shebayayim, and the proof for this is because we could see that by day, Mayana is tzainanim. By daytime, the well springs are cold, and the reason is because the sun is above, and therefore they don't get that much of the effect of the heat of the sun. But ubalayla reischen. By night, the well springs warm up, and the reason is because the sun is going below and it's heating them up from below. That's his raya. Tanya, we learned in Abraisa. Rab Nassan said, "B'yamayis chama during the summer months, chama mahaleches begoyvel sharikia." The sun, the track of the sun, is going in the height and of the rikia above us. And lefichach kol ha'olam kulei reiseach, and therefore the world heats up. And the sun is far away from the well springs, and therefore they are cold. But in the winter, the track of the sun goes in an angle, it goes like lower down. So chama ma'alechas b'shipulei rakia, in the lower section of the rakia, and lefichach kol ha'olam kulei tzainin, so we don't get the light of the sun doesn't hit us as directly as during the summer. But in mayanais reischem. But the mayanais, the well springs, do get a closer effect from the sun, and therefore they are warmer during the winter. Okay. One more thing, b'negeh to the effect of the sun on the world. Tana Rabbanam, we learned in Abraisa, Ba'abo, Shvilin, Chama Ma'aleches. There are 4 tracks that the sun goes in them. It really means to say there are 4 different parts of the year where we can see the effect of the sun in different places. Nisan, Ir, V'Sivin, the 3 months of Nisan, Ir, and Sivin, Mahaleches, Baharim. The effect of the sun is primarily on the mountains. Kedei lefasher sashlogin. That's the time when the sun melts all the snow from the winter. Tamuz of elol mahaleches b'yishuv. The main effect of the sun is in the civilization, where you have people that are living. Kedei levashles aperis. In order that the sun helps to ripen the produce. Tishrei, Marcheshvan, v'Kislev. Then it comes to fall in these 3 months. Mahaleches b'yamim. The main effect of the sun is on the waters, to dry out the rivers and to dry out the extra water. Tevis, Shvat v'Adar, and the land of the 3 months of the winter, Mahaleches b'Midbar, the main effect of the sun is in the desert, Shaloi liyabish es azroim, in order that the effect of the sun should not dry up the seeds that were planted in the winter. That's the different effects and different the seasons of the year, that everything should work out perfectly for the civilization of the world. Okay. Let's come back here below into this world. The Gemara now goes back to what it says in the Mishnah, Menegea 2, the distance that a person is from the Azara, and he's considered to be b'derech rechaika, that he could bring the Pesach Sheni. So Rabbi Eliezer, the second opinion of the Mishnah was, me'askupas chulu. If a person is right outside the threshold of the Azara, he's considered to be b'derech rechaika. Sagt the Gemara, va'afal gav, the matzi ayil, even though he's able to enter, we don't tell him that he should go in and he should bring the carbon. He's considered to be b'derech rechaika, and he's not chayiv kares, and he can bring the Pesach Sheni. But Vatanya, didn't we learn in Abraisa, Orol shaloi mol, a person that did not have a bris, and he does not make his bris then on Erev Pesach in order to bring the carbon Pesach, onush kares. He's chayiv an einish of kares, divrei Rabbi Eliezer. So what do we see? Even though he's an Orol, but we tell him, you have to make a bris to bring the carbon. So we should say the same thing regarding a person that's right outside the Azara, that you should enter in order to be able to bring the carbon. Amar Abaye says, Abaye, it's not the same thing. Derech rechaika l'tahir. When the Torah said that a person which is derech rechaika is potter, he's not chayiv any kares, that's for a person that's tar. The Torah specifically says that if you are derech rechaika, then there's no kares for you. outside the Azara, that's called derech rechaika. You're not there in the place where the carbon is brought. Ve'ein derech rechaika l'tamei. But a person that's tamei, and Rashi says the same thing is also for a oral, that right now he's not fit to bring the carbon. Over there, the Torah does not say this patur of derech rechaika. And if you're able to be tied or you're able to make a bris, you're obligated to. But regarding derech rechaika, the Torah specifically excludes him and says that if you're derech rechaika, you're pater. Rava says Tanoi he that there's a machlokes Tanoim regarding Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. The Tanya, because we learned in the Braise, Rabbi Eliezer said, Nema richuk mokim bePesach. The Torah uses this expression of derech rechaika regarding the carbon Pesach. And v'nema richuk mokim b'maiser. And the Torah also uses the expression of richuk mokim regarding a person that's bringing maiser to Yerushalayim. That you're away, you're far, you're not inside Yerushalayim. Mala alon. So one opinion over here is that just like when it comes to maiser, what does this mean that you're outside? What's rochik? Chutz la'chilasa, you're outside Yerushalayim, which is the place that you can eat your maiser. So too, afkan chutz la'chilasa. So too, by the carbon Pesach, what does it mean when we say that you're b'derech rechaika? Outside the place where you can eat your carbon Pesach. So what is this referring to? It refers to outside Yerushalayim, not outside the Azara. And according to this opinion, if you would be outside the Azara, we would tell you, go into the Azara. So this is taka the opinion that would fit with what we said before by a bris. If you didn't make a bris, we tell you make a bris. That's one opinion. So he said chutz la'achilase, only if you're outside Yerushalayim, then you're derech rechaika. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Omer, but then there's the second opinion which fits with what we said before, and he said b'shum Rabbi Eliezer, in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, chutz li'asiyasai. That what we compare to the Maisa when a person is outside, when it says derech rechaika there, and we say that it's outside the place of asiyasai, outside of the place where you can fulfill your mitzvah of Maisa. So too over here, it means that you're right outside the Azara where you could fulfill your mitzvah of shechting the carbon. And that's the opinion that we said before, that even if you're right outside the Azara, you're not chayav kares. According to his opinion, is this what Rabbi Yitzchak bar Rav Yosef said go? But Tmeim, he said, when it comes to Tmeim, so we had before regarding the halacha of Tmeim, that if Reiv of Klal Yisrael is Tamei, so then they could all bring the carbon Betuma. The question is, who are you counting? Who is included in that count to see if most people are Tamei? So he said, Haloich achareiv ha'oimdim ba'azara. You only count the people that are actually standing inside of the Azara. Anyone outside in the Azara is derech rechaika. They're not in a place that they could bring the carbon Pesach at that moment, and we don't include them. Kaman, according to his opinion, is this Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Mishama, Mishum Rabbi Elazar. This follows what we just said according to Rabbi Elazar. According to this opinion, according to Rabbi Elazar, that we only count people that are actually inside the Azara. Everyone else is derech rechaika. According to the other opinion of Rabbi Elazar, you would have to count everyone that's in Yerushalayim. That's not considered to be derech rechaika. Okay. Then the last thing, we go back to what it said in the Mishnah. Amalei Rabbi Yosi lefichach v'chulu. So Rabbi Yosi said, how do we know that derech rechaika does not literally mean someone that's very far, but it means someone that's right outside the Azara, because there's a dat on top of the word rechaika, on the hey of rechaika, so we know that it's not to be read literally, but it means right outside the Azara. So now the Gemara brings another source for this, that derech rechaika does not mean literally. Tanya Navraisa we learned. Rabbi Yosi haglili aimer derech. Or the Bach is actually guided here, derech rechaika. It says in the Torah regarding this person that's far, so it says derech rechaika, far. Shemei ani, so I would think that what does this mean? Mahalach shnayim ashloish yomim, that he's far enough that it would take him 2 or 3 days to come in. So that's what the simple taich of rechaika would mean. But then, ukeshehu oimer, then it says it again in the pasuk, ubederech loy haya, and he was not on the way. And here, when the Torah repeats it a second time, it doesn't say the word rechaika. It just says ubederech loyhaya. Magid, so that teaches me shemas skupas ha'azara. If you're standing right outside of the threshold of the azara, lachotz kari derech, you're still on your way. Over here, the Torah skipped the word rechaika. So right outside, you consider to be on your way, and therefore you're not going to be chayav kares if you didn't bring the carbon Pesach.